Hello NBA fans and welcome to the 29th episode of the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly series here on the NBA The Week That Was. In one of the last episodes of this series, I'll be analyzing the Utah Jazz and what went well for them this year, what could we work on moving forward, and how I think they'll be doing when the season resumes. So without further ado, let's get right into the 29th episode of the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly series here on the NBA The Week That Was. The Utah Jazz had quite a similar year as to what they've had in the past few years with Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert as their core. They end up around the 4th or 5th seed but really don't prove themselves as contenders in the West. This year I thought that would be different, but again it ended up being the same. With the acquisitions of Mike Conley and Bojan Bogdanovic and free agency and just through trading and stuff, I really felt that the Utah Jazz were putting themselves in a position to take that leap and become a contender along with the Nuggets, Lakers, and Clippers in the Western Conference. However, Mike Conley really struggled to fit into this team, and despite Bojan Bogdanovic providing that great scoring for this Utah Jazz team, it really just didn't click for them with Mike Conley, which led to him ending the season being benched when the season was suspended, and players like just other players stepping into his role as a starting point guard, which is very unfortunate for Mike Conley, who undoubtedly should have been an all-star in his past years and is one of the best point guards in the NBA. He just couldn't click in the Utah franchise. Bojan Bogdanovic, however, was a great three-point stretch man for the Utah Jazz. With Joe Ingles, Donovan Mitchell, and Bojan, they had a great three-point shooting lineup, and Jordan Clarkson and Royce O'Neal off the bench. Speaking of Jordan Clarkson was acquired at mid-season from the Cleveland Cavaliers and proved to be that spark for the Utah Jazz team that was struggling at the start of the year. It always happens. They struggle to start the year, however, they figure something out and end up vaulting themselves into the 5th or 4th seed. However, if they were consistent throughout the whole year, they could have ended up as the 2nd or 3rd seed, But however, Jordan Clarkson was the spark off their bench. He would give you 12 or 13 points a night and just really was a great scorer, all-around scorer. He has a great athleticism, which helps him drive to the rim, but he also has a great three-point shot. He was one of the best three-point shooters for the Jazz this year. Donovan Mitchell did his Donovan Mitchell thing, averaging around 24-25 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists, being that number one option that he was since his rookie year, Mitchell has really become the best player on this Jazz team and is arguably one of the best scorers in the NBA. His all-around scoring game is wonderful to watch, and he's, becoming more and more efficient, which happens as young players gain more experience and more maturity as time goes on in their NBA careers. Rudy Gobert continued to do his Rudy Gobert thing as one of the best defensive players in the league. The 2-time defensive player of the year, continues to block shots, be in the right position to contest shots, and just makes this Utah Jazz team so hard to score on in the paint due to his presence as the stifle tower. But as I said, Mike Conley really didn't play well for the Jazz. However, as the year went on, they really, they figured it out. They figured out who needs to start, who needs to come off the bench, and how this team should work. Joe Ingles is another player who continues to be underrated as not only just a player in general, but as a playmaker. He's I think some teams like the Warriors did with Draymond Green. A relatively big guy who brings the ball up and gives it off to the better scorers. He has a great playmaking sense, but also is one of the best three-point shooters in the NBA. So Joe Ingles' presence continues to be valuable for this Utah Jazz team. So they have a great core, Mitchell, Bogdanovic, Rudy Gobert, Mike Conley, Joe Ingles, Jordan Clarkson. However, I still feel that they still need to take that next step. They aren't at the levels of the Lakers, Clippers, and Nuggets. However, there is one thing I forgot to mention that was very important for the Utah Jazz team this year. That was Rudy Gobert being the first player to get the coronavirus in the NBA. His acquisition of the coronavirus led to the league being suspended on March 12th, and overall just being the root of all not really the root, but just the spark that lit up all this just bubble, suspension. All of this was because of Rudy Gobert getting the coronavirus and being careless. There was videos that surfaced of him touching all the mics, just not taking the virus seriously. He also ended up giving the virus to Donovan Mitchell. That led to a very rocky point in their relationship. There were reports that their relationship wasn't even salvageable, and the Jazz would need to move on from one of them in order to, make the other one play. So it was looking very bad for the Jazz. Can they really, sustain the level of success they've had over the years without Rudy Gobert or Donovan Mitchell? However, as this time is going on, they really had some deep conversations and understood that Rudy made a mistake, and Donovan understood that, which led to the relationship not being as good as it was before. We're at a point where they can put their heads down and do what is professional and play basketball and try and get success for this Utah Jazz franchise. However, when the playoff time comes in Orlando, I really don't see the Utah Jazz going far. I feel currently they're at the 4th seed. They'll slip down to the 5th seed after those 8 regular season games will be played. And despite Quinn Snyder's great coaching as a leader, but also his defensive and offensive abilities as a coach, I feel that their team isn't suited for the playoffs as of now. I still feel that, Donovan's still too young. Rudy Gobert doesn't provide enough on the offensive end. Bogdanovic is out for the rest of the season due to wrist surgery, which will be a massive loss. He was their second option this year. Without Bojan, Donovan will be carrying a massive load on his back, and Rudy can't take that load off his back. Joe Ingles can only go so far. Jordan Clarkson, again, can only do so much. Mike Conley, if he can step it up, that'll be clutch for the Jazz. However, despite Snyder's great coaching abilities and Donovan's great scoring abilities, Rudy's defensive abilities, this team will drop down to the 5th seed and get bounced in the first round once again by the Houston Rockets. I think for the last 2 or 3 playoffs, at least twice, the Jazz have been eliminated by the Rockets, which is very unfortunate for them. However, I feel it will happen again. Despite the Houston Rockets going all in for small ball, I don't think Rudy Gobert has the offensive capabilities to capitalize on that, and just the high-fire offense of Russell Westbrook and James Harden going at you. I definitely feel that the Utah Jazz will get bounced in the first round, and the Rockets will be moving on. So yeah, I feel that the Jazz, despite having a typical season for the Jazz, like for the last few years, ending up as the 4th or 5th seed, they still need to take that leap and become a contender in the Western Conference. And I honestly couldn't tell you how that happens, because I feel they have the pieces. Maybe they just need a bit more time. Maybe Mike Conley needs to move. They need to move on from Mike Conley, acquire a point guard who will actually live up to his expectations. Maybe Rudy needs to step up on the offensive end. Overall, there are just 1 or 2 more pieces in the puzzle that need to be fitted in for the Utah Jazz to take that next step as contenders in the Western Conference. And with that, I would like to conclude the 29th episode of the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly series here on the NBA, The Week That Was. This series will be coming to a conclusion. After a long 2 months, I'll be ending this series on Wednesday with the Washington Wizards being the 30th team in the NBA that I analyzed, and that'll mean I've analyzed all the teams. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like as always, and if you are new on this channel, subscribe as well. If you have any feedback for me, good or bad, please leave it in the comment section down below, and I'll catch you guys on the 30th episode of the Good, the Bad, the Ugly series here on the NBA, The Week That Was. See ya!